a time.
Yeah, and I love this idea of these insights of these things that you are taking for granted in a way, because it's, you know, it was, for whatever reason, maybe it was an obvious solution to make the folders draggable like that, and then it just blows away these other people. And I think that that's something that I find that myself just in trying it, or I have found that in trying to find my own entrepreneurial voice or deciding what to do with in my own career, is that every once in a while somebody will like make an observation. They say, "Oh, you know, you're really good at explaining things," or something like that, and you're like, "Well, wait, I didn't know that."
Yeah.
Was there anything like that for you personally that helped you find your own path at, you know, within the 37, maybe in the early days of 37 Signals or something, things that you didn't necessarily know that you were good at, but you later discovered through observations like that?
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure if it's a specific thing other than like a way of looking at things. So we would do work for clients all the time, oftentimes bigger clients. Like back in the early days, we'd do work for Hewlett-Packard or something. We did a website for them.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting in a meeting with them, and there'd be a lot of people on the table, and they'd be talking stuff through, and they'd be like, you know, they'd be talking stuff through, putting the ideas through their own process, which often involved a lot of people and follow-up meetings and like a whole timetable to get something, to try something. And I'd be like, why don't we just try it right now? Like, why don't we just make the change right now and just like look at it together? And like that to me was like, oh, of course, like if we want to see how it looks, let's just do it and then let's look at it. And for them, that was just like a revelation. Like, what? Like, but it doesn't have to be this and that and improved. And I'm like, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. Let's just like right now. Let's just do. Let me pull up my laptop and I'll make the change and I'll hit reload and let's look at the page. Like those things, like that came from me being a freelancer, which is like I was working on my own. I had no one else to talk to, no one else to like rely on. I had to do it all myself. Like I did all the HTML and design, and there was no process. So like for me, just growing up that way in the industry helped me realize that you don't need a lot of people to get things done. You don't need like a lot of process to try stuff. But a lot of the clients I worked with early on, like they couldn't believe, like they're like, "You're a genius." I'm like, "I'm not a genius at all." That is like the worst label to give me. I'm actually being a simpleton. I'm just being like, let's just hit reload. Let's just change it and hit reload. But so it wasn't like a thing. It was just a way of cutting through stuff. And what I saw there was that process creates layers and layers and layers upon which you then begin to rely, and you don't realize that there was a time when you didn't have to have all those layers, but you become used to them and you think that that's the only way. And so I think what I was good at early on was coming in and like cutting through that stuff and being like, we don't need to do all that, let's just do it this way. And they'd be like, what? You're not allowed to do it that way.
Again, it goes to this contrarian thinking thing, which, you know, I'm trying to figure out like how much of it is your DNA, and then how much of it was, you know, was there ever a time, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I think that, yeah, I can show a lot of people, here we're talking with Jason Fried, he sees things differently from the way other people do. But somebody can't just flip a switch and start thinking in their own way or gain that confidence. Was there ever a time when you didn't have the confidence to do that? And how'd that happen?
I mean, I've always had a worldview, I think, which is like things are simpler than they appear, actually, which is funny because they're also way more complicated than they appear. But like, I mean, what I mean by that is that things can be simpler. Like whatever the thing you're trying to solve, like there's a simpler version of that. Like I've just always had that in me. That I'm like, there's no way this is the only way we can do this. We can do this simpler. We can do this clear. We can be clearer about this.
What do you think was like the earliest example you can think of where
of that
you did that?
So I remember, back before the web was around, the way I got started in any of this stuff was I made this program called AudioFile, which was a which was a music organizing tool. It was like iTunes, kind of way back, but there was no digital music. So it was just like a way to organize your CDs and your tapes. Because I had a bunch and I was loaning them out to friends and never getting them back.
Tapes, for people who don't know, was this thing that had two reels on it. And there was this tape-like thing.
There's actually
had music on it.
Yeah. was tape that moved.
It wasn't sticky.
Right.
But
it was magnetic and weird. Anyway, so I would loan stuff out to friends and never get it back. And I didn't know who borrowed it, and I didn't know. So I'm like, I need to organize this stuff. I need to get my stuff together. So I started looking on AOL, actually, because the internet wasn't around. This is like the early 90s. And I'm like, but the AOL was around. There's like software boards and stuff where you could like download shareware and stuff. And I downloaded a bunch of these music apps because there was a lot of other people who had this problem. And I just found them incredibly complicated and just like really weird and strange and ugly and all the things. I mean, it's still subjective, but like my aesthetic was not being met by, or was not being satisfied by their aesthetic. And like, I don't know how to do this, but I need something, and I'm going to make one myself. So I just like got FileMaker and learned how to do it and made like a much simpler version, because I just made something that I knew I needed. And it wasn't about imagining what everyone else needed. It was just like, what do I need? And I was able to cut right to that. And it became a very successful product. And like I made 20 grand off this little shareware thing.
Getting checks in the mail at
Yeah, and this was the revelation that I could do this for a living.
Yeah.
So I put in the product, it was shareware, which is like you could use it for free, but if you like it, send me $20, and here's my home address.
Yeah.
So people started sending me $20 bills, and I'm like, holy shit, I can do this.
Were there moments of doubt along the way, or
Never, because I didn't care.
You didn't care. It just happened.
It was for me.
Yeah.
Like the product was for me, and if no one used it, didn't care.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always tried to make it, which is like we still make Basecamp for ourselves. And like we need Basecamp to run our own business, and I mean I care a lot more now because we have tons of customers, and I've got a payroll, 50 people, and the whole thing, right? But fundamentally, it's still like we need to solve. We want to make something for ourselves because we know there's a lot of people out there just like us who need what we need, and like that's how we look at it. But with AudioFile, the first thing ever, I mean, I was like in high school or whatever it was, and it's like there was never a moment of doubt because it didn't matter if anyone used it. Mm-hmm. It was a miracle that anyone did. But I needed it for my own thing, and so that was all it wasn't even about confidence. It was like I needed it anyway, and then that's how I kind of learned graphic design and learned a little bit of software development and learned usability, and learned about customer feedback and all the stuff I learned through those channels because I made my own little software thing.
So it seems like there were like no existential crises over like, oh, should I do this or that? And
well, I mean, yeah, like I think the biggest one we had recently in the company was like deciding to go all in on Basecamp and what to do with the other products and stuff. So that wasn't like an existential thing, but it was like a moment, and there was risk involved and all that stuff, and those moments still come up. I mean, deciding what to do in a product, and do we release it this way or release it that way, and how do we price it? Like we have those discussions and decisions all the time, but I try not to worry about it too much. I worry about it probably more than I should still, but it's like, let's make a call and move forward and see how it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a few questions that are a little more canned questions as we wrap up. What's the biggest